For countless millennia, the galaxy was alive with civilizations. Great empires rose and fell, building cities among the stars, carving their names into history. There were records of battles, treaties, discoveries, and conquests. Every corner of the galaxy had been mapped, documented, and stored in the vast archives of the Galactic Council. But one world was missing. It was not an empty system or an uninhabited moon. It was a planet once known in whispers, a place whose name had been erased from official records. The Council had sealed it away, hidden it behind layers of forbidden technology. Star charts carried a mark of silence where it once stood. No ship dared to enter. No species spoke of it openly. That world was Earth. Most of the younger races had never even heard of it. To them, it was nothing but a forgotten story, an old myth shared in hushed tones. They were told of a people who burned too brightly, who reached too far, who could not be trusted with the freedom of the stars. Legends painted humanity as a race of ambition and fire, a force that threatened balance itself. But legends fade, and as centuries passed, most dismissed the tales as superstition. Yet the silence remained. While billions of citizens of the galaxy lived their lives, none dared to ask why that small patch of space was forbidden. Curiosity was dangerous. Those who tried to probe too deeply often vanished, their ships lost without trace. And so the secret held. The galaxy continued to turn, with Earth locked behind its invisible prison. Then, one day, the prison cracked. A team of explorers from the Orion Trade Guild were mapping nearby sectors when their deep scanners detected something unusual. A faint pulse, rhythmic, deliberate, not the random noise of space. The signal repeated again and again, carrying across the void. Its origin lay within the forbidden sector, the one sealed for millennia. The news spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council was forced to respond. At first they downplayed it, calling it a natural phenomenon. But scientists disagreed. The pattern was too precise, too purposeful. Someone, or something, was calling out. Reluctantly, a council fleet was dispatched to investigate. Generals argued it was too dangerous. Scholars insisted the truth must be uncovered. In the end, they compromised. A cautious expedition, heavily armed, sent to observe but not interfere. When the fleet approached, they found themselves at the edge of an invisible barrier. The seal was still there, ancient and powerful, a wall of energy that cloaked the system from view. For hours the fleet probed, tested, and measured. Then suddenly, with no warning, the barrier collapsed. Where there had been nothing, a star system bloomed into sight. A sun glowing bright, planets circling in their silent orbits. And there, on the third world, a sphere of blue and green, clouds swirling across its skies. Earth. The crews aboard the council ships stared in disbelief. Against all expectation, the planet was not dead, not ruined, not lost. It was alive. Cities shone faintly against the night side of the world. Vast structures glimmered from orbit. The humans had survived. More than survived. They had thrived. The council was shaken. For so long they had told themselves the seal was necessary, that the humans would wither without access to the galaxy. Yet here was proof of the opposite. Despite being cut off, humanity had endured. They had built their own future, alone and forgotten. Among the fleet, officers whispered in fear. What kind of people could grow so strong in complete isolation? What kind of civilization could endure imprisonment for thousands of years without collapsing? The answer was simple, and it chilled the galaxy to its core: humanity. The council fleet did not rush forward. They lingered in orbit, cautious, as if the very sight of Earth carried danger. For generations, they had spoken of this world as a threat, and now the threat was staring back at them, alive and unbroken. The first transmissions were simple, bright signals of peace carefully crafted in many languages of the galaxy. We come in peace. We are explorers. We wish to speak. The messages were sent again and again, bouncing through the void, directed toward Earth. At first there was silence, then a reply. The human signal was strong, clear, and unmistakably deliberate. "We hear you." On the council ship's crews froze. It was the first human voice the galaxy had heard in thousands of years. It was not filled with hostility. It was not filled with fear. But there was a sharpness in the tone, a weight that made every listener uneasy. It was the voice of a people who had endured too much to be naive. Within days, Earth allowed the first meeting. A group of human representatives appeared not in person but through projection. They stood tall, dressed in simple uniforms, their faces calm and controlled. Their eyes, however, betrayed something deeper. Suspicion. "Why now?" the human speaker asked. "Why break the silence after so long?" The council envoys exchanged nervous glances. They offered polite answers about exploration, about rediscovery, about seeking friendship. But the humans did not smile. To them, the truth was obvious. Humanity had not been forgotten by accident. They had been sealed away, imprisoned within their own skies. And now, after centuries of growth, the jailers had returned, pretending to be innocent travelers. Generations of humans had grown up with only fragments of the old stories. They knew their ancestors had once touched the stars. They knew something had cut them off. And they had asked again and again, why were we abandoned? Now, with the galaxy before them, the question burned brighter than ever. The council, for all its diplomacy, could not hide the unease in their voices. They had expected ruins, a broken species barely clinging to survival. Instead, they had found towers of steel, fleets resting silently in orbit, and a people whose unity was carved by centuries of isolation. "Your world is remarkable," one alien envoy said carefully. "You have endured where others would have fallen. You must understand there are reasons for the past." The human representative tilted his head. Reasons? Or excuses? The silence that followed was heavy. No one answered. Across the galaxy, news spread faster than light. Earth lives. The humans have returned. Some celebrated, eager for new trade and discovery. Others whispered in fear. Old records resurfaced, warnings of human wars, stories of their relentless spirit, tales of victories against impossible odds. In alien courts and councils, debates erupted. Were the humans a chance for new alliances, or a danger that must be contained before it was too late? But while the galaxy argued, humanity watched in silence. They studied every envoy, every word, every ship that orbited their skies. They remembered the seal. They remembered the long isolation. And though they spoke with calm voices, the fire inside them had never gone out. That night, on Earth itself, billions gathered in their cities. Families looked up at the stars, pointing at the bright shapes of council ships above. Some felt hope, wondering if at last the prison was gone forever. Others felt anger, believing the galaxy had only returned to chain them again. In the human halls of leadership, the debate was fierce. Some leaders argued for patience, for caution, for the chance to step gently into the galaxy once more. Others spoke of betrayal, of wounds not healed, of debts not forgiven. But all agreed on one thing: humanity would never again bow. They had been sealed, abandoned, and forgotten. Yet they had risen. The galaxy had come expecting a lost race, but instead they had found survivors with iron in their veins. And behind every human smile, the question still lingered. What happens now? The return of Earth was no longer a secret. The news had spread like wildfire across every empire and colony. From the farthest mining stations to the richest capital, world's beings of all kinds spoke the same words in awe and dread. The humans are back. At first, curiosity filled the stars. Traders wondered what treasures Earth might offer. Scholars dreamed of ancient knowledge, untouched for millennia. Ordinary citizens marveled at the mystery of a world hidden away for so long. But as the days passed, curiosity turned into unease. Then unease turned into fear. The council tried to control the story, but it was too late. Records, long buried, were dragged out from the vaults. Old reports, yellow with age, were whispered across the halls of power. They spoke of wars humanity once fought, not small border skirmishes, but galaxy-shaking conflicts. The documents told of battles where human fleets faced enemies far larger and still refused to break. They told of soldiers who fought even when defeat was certain, who carried on until their enemies collapsed in exhaustion. They told of a species that did not know surrender. One ancient record spoke in chilling words: "They will not stop. They will not kneel. If they rise, the galaxy itself will tremble." The whispers grew louder. In markets, merchants lowered their voices when speaking of Earth. In military outposts, commanders quietly shifted resources toward defense. On homeworlds, leaders gathered in secret councils asking themselves the same question: if the humans truly return, what will they do? To many, humanity's survival was proof of something unnatural. No other species could have endured such isolation. Cut off from trade, from allies, from the lifeblood of the galaxy. Others argued it was not unnatural, it was simply human nature. "They are fire," one elder scholar said. "Fire burns in darkness. Fire grows even when smothered. Fire cannot be forgotten." Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity watched the galaxy's reaction with quiet intensity. Through intercepted broadcasts, they saw the fear spreading. They heard the whispers calling them dangerous, unpredictable, unstoppable. Some humans laughed bitterly at the hypocrisy. It was the galaxy that had sealed them away, and now the jailers were afraid of what they had become. Within the council, debates raged louder each day. Some delegates begged for peace. They spoke of trade, of unity, of a chance to heal the old wound. But others demanded action. "Strike now," they argued, "before the humans grow stronger, before they remember what they once were." A few even suggested reforging the seal. Yet when they looked at Earth, they knew the truth. The seal had failed once. It would not hold again. The tension spread like cracks in glass. Fleets began to move, quietly shifting into nearby systems. Patrols grew heavier. Borders tightened. And still humanity remained silent, speaking only in short, controlled messages. This silence frightened the galaxy more than any threat. Humans were watching, listening, waiting, and no one could guess what their choice would be. On one council world, a young alien cadet asked his commander, "Why do they fear the humans so much? They are just one species among thousands." The commander's answer was quiet, almost sorrowful: "Because they are not like us. We grow cautious with time. We grow weary of struggle. But humans grow sharper. Pain does not break them, it hardens them. Isolation does not weaken them, it forges them. That is why we fear them, because we know deep inside that if they decide to rise, none of us can stand in their way." And so the whispers of fear became the song of the galaxy. In every chamber of power, in every home, in every fleet, one truth was clear: humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had endured. And now, the galaxy trembled at what might come next. The galaxy had not known such tension in thousands of years. Empires that once ignored each other now held secret meetings. Old rivals, bound by nothing but mutual fear, began to speak as allies. Every conversation turned to the same subject: Earth. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, arguments thundered day and night. Some representatives raised their voices for peace, urging trust and cooperation. They spoke of humanity's brilliance, of their endurance, of the chance to unite the galaxy under a new light. But others were louder. They demanded preemptive action.
"Do you not see?"
one delegate cried. "They survived isolation. They thrived without us. If we give them time, if we give them space, they will surpass us all. Strike now or live forever in their shadow." Every word of fear echoed across the galaxy, seeping into the minds of ordinary citizens. Fleets were quietly mobilized, but no one declared open war. No empire wanted to be the first to provoke humanity. Instead, they circled like predators around a wounded beast, waiting, testing, but unwilling to strike alone. On Earth, leaders watched all of this unfold. Reports from their intelligence fleets revealed the truth. Ships were gathering at the borders, weapons were being armed, whispers of war filled the stars. Humanity understood what was coming. Inside vast halls of steel, human admirals met in silence. They studied the maps of space, the shifting patterns of fleets, the tightening noose around their system. Every move of the galaxy was clear to them. Humanity was being surrounded, yet there was no fear in their eyes, only resolve. One leader, A woman whose voice carried the weight of centuries of survival, stood before her people and spoke. Her words were simple, but they burned with truth. They sealed us away because they feared us, she said. They feared our strength, our will, and our unity. And now, after all this time, they return, not to welcome us, but to contain us again. The question is not whether they fear us. The question is, what do we choose to do with that fear? The speech echoed across Earth, broadcast into every home, every street, every heart. Billions listened in silence, their eyes fixed on the stars above. Some wept with pride. Others clenched their fists with anger. But all felt the same truth. The galaxy was afraid of them, and that fear would shape everything that followed. Meanwhile, aboard alien war councils, panic grew. Every intercepted human broadcast only deepened their worry. Unlike other species, humans did not rage openly. They did not threaten or boast. They simply watched and waited. To the galaxy, that calmness was more terrifying than any roar of war. On a distant world, an alien scholar spoke before his people. "Do you know why we fear them?" he asked. "Because they do not see defeat as an end. To them, pain is a teacher. Loss is a lesson, and every attempt to chain them only makes them stronger. That is what the seal has done. It has not broken them, it has forged them. And so, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon, tension thickened. The smallest spark could ignite war. A single mistake could unleash chaos across 1,000 systems. Yet still, humanity did not move. Their fleets remained in orbit, silent and ready. Their cities glowed with life, not with war. To the galaxy, it was unbearable. The waiting felt like standing on the edge of a blade, knowing that the slightest slip could cut deep. The rising storm was no longer just a fear. It was a reality, and soon the galaxy would learn what path humanity had chosen, mercy or fire. The storm of fear grew heavier with every passing day. Rumors filled the galaxy like wildfire. Some claimed humanity was already building fleets beyond imagination. Others whispered that humans had uncovered ancient technologies while locked away. None of these rumors were proven, but still they spread, and fear made them stronger than truth. At last, the Galactic Council made a choice. They could no longer hide the past. The secret of the seal had to be spoken. In a chamber older than most civilizations, the Council gathered. Representatives of dozens of species sat in silence as the High Archivist unsealed records untouched for millennia. The air was heavy with tension, for everyone knew that once the truth was revealed, nothing could be taken back. The Archivist's voice was steady, but sorrowful. "Long ago," he began, "humanity was not as you see them now. They were explorers, yes, but also conquerors. Their spirit burned too fiercely. Wherever they went, conflict followed. Not always by their intent, but by their nature. They challenged old empires. They resisted domination, and in time, the galaxy grew afraid. The chamber fell into whispers, but the Archivist continued. It was not humanity who asked for war. It was us, we who struck first. We who decided that such a species could not be allowed to grow unchecked. Dozens of empires came together, united by fear, and we built the seal, a prison of light and energy. We locked Earth away and erased its name from our records. The silence that followed was unbearable. For generations, everyone had believed humanity was the danger. Now they realized the truth. They had been the victims of betrayal. On Earth, when these revelations were broadcast, the reaction was thunderous. Streets filled with crowds, their voices rising in disbelief and anger. Families who had wondered for centuries why their ancestors were abandoned now had their answer. It had not been fate. It had not been chance. It had been fear. Deliberate, cold fear. Leaders stood before their people, their voices heavy with emotion. "We were not sealed because we were weak," one said. "We were sealed because they knew we were strong. They feared what we could become. And even through their betrayal, even through their prison, we endured. We grew. We rose. Across the galaxy, the truth shook every world. Some species felt guilt, ashamed of their ancestors' choices. Others felt even greater fear. For if humanity had survived the seal, what strength might they wield now? The oldest races whispered the truth that none wished to speak aloud. The seal had not destroyed humanity. It had tested them. It had forged them. In military halls across alien empires, commanders studied old records of human battles. They saw a pattern that filled them with dread. No matter the odds, humanity had never surrendered. No matter the chains, they had never stayed broken. "If this is what they became in isolation," one commander said, then what will they be with the galaxy before them? On Earth, silence filled the council chambers of human leaders. They now knew the truth. They had been betrayed. Their ancestors had been chained not for crimes committed, but for potential feared, and now, standing free beneath the open sky, they had a choice to make. Would they forgive, or would they show the galaxy why it had feared them in the first place? The truth of the seal had been revealed. But the truth was only the beginning. For the galaxy, the revelation was a wound that would never heal. For humanity, it was a fire that would never go out. And with that fire, the balance of the galaxy trembled. The storm of fear grew heavier with every passing day. Rumors filled the galaxy like wildfire. Some claimed humanity was already building fleets beyond imagination. Others whispered that humans had uncovered ancient technologies while locked away. None of these rumors were proven, but still they spread, and fear made them stronger than truth. At last, the Galactic Council made a choice. They could no longer hide the past. The secret of the seal had to be spoken. In a chamber older than most civilizations, the council gathered. Representatives of dozens of species sat in silence as the High Archivist unsealed records untouched for millennia. The air was heavy with tension, for everyone knew that once the truth was revealed, nothing could be taken back. The Archivist's voice was steady, but sorrowful. Long ago, he began, humanity was not as you see them now. They were explorers, yes, but also conquerors. Their spirit burned too fiercely. Wherever they went, conflict followed. Not always by their intent, but by their nature. They challenged old empires. They resisted domination. And in time, the galaxy grew afraid. The chamber fell into whispers, but the Archivist continued. It was not humanity who asked for war. It was us, we who struck first. We who decided that such a species could not be allowed to grow unchecked. Dozens of empires came together, united by fear, and we built the seal, a prison of light and energy. We locked Earth away and erased its name from our records. The silence that followed was unbearable. For generations, everyone had believed humanity was the danger. Now they realized the truth. They had been the victims of betrayal. On Earth, when these revelations were broadcast, the reaction was thunderous. Streets filled with crowds, their voices rising in disbelief and anger. Families who had wondered for centuries why their ancestors were abandoned now had their answer. It had not been fate. It had not been chance. It had been fear. Deliberate, cold fear. Leaders stood before their people, their voices heavy with emotion. We were not sealed because we were weak, one said. We were sealed because they knew we were strong. They feared what we could become. And even through their betrayal, even through their prison, we endured. We grew. We rose. Across the galaxy, the truth shook every world. Some species felt guilt, ashamed of their ancestors' choices. Others felt even greater fear, for if humanity had survived the seal, what strength might they wield now? The oldest races whispered the truth that none wished to speak aloud. The seal had not destroyed humanity. It had tested them. It had forged them. In military halls across alien empires, commanders studied old records of human battles. They saw a pattern that filled them with dread. No matter the odds, humanity had never surrendered. No matter the chains, they had never stayed broken. If this is what they became in isolation, one commander said, then what will they be with the galaxy before them? On Earth, silence filled the council chambers of human leaders. They now knew the truth. They had been betrayed. Their ancestors had been chained not for crimes committed, but for potential feared. And now, standing free beneath the open sky, they had a choice to make. Would they forgive, or would they show the galaxy why it had feared them in the first place? The truth of the seal had been revealed. But the truth was only the beginning. For the galaxy, the revelation was a wound that would never heal. For humanity, it was a fire that would never go out. And with that fire, the balance of the galaxy trembled. The galaxy held its breath. Fleets stood armed, weapons ready, borders tightened like chains. Every empire watched Earth, waiting for the decision that would decide the fate of them all. Would humanity unleash its fire, or would they turn toward peace? The moment came when humanity finally spoke. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, a single human ambassador stood before the gathered rulers of countless worlds. He was calm, not armored, not armed. His presence alone was enough to silence the hall. Eyes of 1,000 species stared at him, waiting for a declaration of war or a plea for forgiveness. His voice carried across the chamber, steady and clear. You sealed us away because you feared us, he began. You erased our name from your records. You made us prisoners of our own skies. You believed we would wither, that we would forget who we were. But you were wrong. We did not die in the dark. We grew. The words struck like thunder. Murmurs filled the chamber, but none dared interrupt. For millennia, we asked ourselves the same question. Why? Why were we abandoned? Why were we locked away? And now we know the truth. It was not because we were weak. It was because you saw our strength. You feared what we might become. The hall was silent again. Every word weighed heavy on those who listened. The ambassador's eyes burned with restrained fire. And now you stand before us still afraid. Afraid that we will take revenge. Afraid that we will become the monster you once imagined. Perhaps you are right to fear. Because we have endured chains that no other could survive. We have learned patience, unity, and resolve. We are not the same as when you sealed us away. We are more. A ripple of unease spread through the council chamber. Some envoys bowed their heads in shame. Others clenched their claws or fists in anger. But no one could deny the truth in his words. Then came the words that changed everything. We do not seek your destruction, the human declared. We do not need to conquer your worlds or burn your fleets. We seek only what was stolen from us, our place among the stars. And we will take it whether you welcome us or not. The silence that followed was absolute. The galaxy trembled not from the threat of war, but from the certainty of change. Some saw hope. They saw a chance for humanity to bring new strength, new vision, new unity to the stars. Others saw doom, convinced that no power could coexist with such a relentless species. But all understood one truth. Humanity had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again. Back on Earth, crowds filled the streets as the words of their ambassador echoed across the planet. Children cheered, elders wept, and families held one another tightly. For the first time in millennia, their voices were heard in the galaxy. They were no longer prisoners. They were free. Across alien worlds, ordinary citizens listened too. Some trembled, some prayed, some felt awe, but all felt the weight of history pressing down on them. The forgotten world had risen from silence, and its people spoke with a voice that could not be ignored. The seal had not broken them. It had forged them, and now the galaxy faced the future with uncertainty. Would humanity become its savior or its conqueror? Would the fire of Earth bring warmth or destruction? No one knew the answer. Not yet, but one thing was certain. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows. Their chains were gone. Their voices were clear. And with every word, with every heartbeat, they reminded the galaxy of the oldest truth of all. You cannot seal away fire, and when fire returns, the darkness trembles.